Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Poetry. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Emily Dickinson's brilliant poem, I Started Early, Took My Dog. This video is going to focus more on the context of the poem, Dickinson's life, and it's going to give you some information about the form of the poem. So do get those flashcards ready. There will be a video following up that will do 5 key quotes, analysing language structure and form. So if you haven't subscribed, click that button and then you'll get a notification when it's ready. But for now, let's get started. Okay, so let's talk about what this poem is about. I have to say this is one of my favourite poems in the collection. I think it's marvellous. So in the poem, the narrator, not Emily Dickinson, this is not autobiographical. Emily Dickinson's female narrator recounts going to the beach, taking her dog for a walk on the beach. And as she goes for a walk and the sea starts to come in, she describes the sea, sort of personifies the sea as a man, as a lover, and the literal plot, I suppose, of the poem is that the sea comes in and kind of washes over her feet and then it goes back out again as the tide withdraws. But it's wrapped up in a really big metaphor about sexual awakening and loss of virginity. It's an absolutely superb poem. Context is also really, really interesting. So Emily Dickinson was alive from 1830 to 1886, not a massive long life, 56 years old when she died. And this poem was written round about 1862. She's American. She was lived in Massachusetts. And what's interesting about her poetry is that none of it was published when she was alive. All of her poems were found in her rooms, poems and letters, and then they were published later after her death. She lived a really reclusive life. She didn't leave the house, which is one of the ways that we know this poem isn't about her. It's a narrator. It's not to say it's not about her own feelings, because we'll get onto her love life in a moment, but she definitely did not take her dog to a beach. In fact, there's some sort of recordings out there that suggest that she never even saw the sea. In kind of common terms, we might describe her reclusive living as a something like agoraphobia, fear of leaving the house, but she lived a very contained life. Now, this might be because a lot of people now, looking back at her letters and her poems, think that her ill health was actually epilepsy. Some of her letters, and there's a poem, talks about the kind of like jolts and starts in her body. Now, if she was indeed epileptic, which is the kind of common thought now, this would give a reason for her reclusive nature, because at the time, those that suffered from epilepsy were demonized. They were forbidden from having relationships and marrying, and it was sort of seen as like the devil's curse. So it would make sense that she stayed a recluse. Now, she was unmarried, which again is one of the reasons why the content of this poem is quite interesting, because the poem is definitely about sexual awakening. But that's not to say that she didn't have love interests. She had 2 love interests that we know of, major ones. One was her childhood friend, Susan Gilbert. There are some beautiful letters, Google the letters between Dickinson and Susan that speak of such a wonderful love. And then there was this older gentleman that was actually a friend of her father's, Otis Phillips Lord, and he proposed to her and she turned him down. So bearing in mind we're in 19th century America, her life is actually very, very unusual, and it makes for the most spectacular poetry. Very quickly on form. Again, this is brilliant. I absolutely love the form of this poem. You'll notice that there are all of these little hyphens dotted around the poem. I started early, took my dog and visited the sea. This is a Dickinson thing. All of her poems are full of these stops and starts. It's not just to this poem, it's all. And it might be something to do with her handwriting, and the way that she was kind of breaking up her meter, but it's all of her poems. Now, this is a ballad poem, okay, and it sticks to a very, very specific rhyme scheme and rhythm. So we've got an ABAB rhyme scheme, we've got 6 quatrains, and what you'll notice is they shift from iambic tetrameter to iambic trimeter. So the first and the third line of each stanza is iambic tetrameter, and then the second is trimeter, so 8 syllables versus 6 syllables, and that's the way all the way through. Now, she did like a hymn, which is one of the reasons that she wrote in ballad form. But what is quite extraordinary about this poem is that it fits the rhythm of Amazing Grace, obviously a very famous hymn that she would have known very well, to the T. You know, I'm not going to sing it to you because that would be weird, but if you sing it in your head, I started early, took my dog and visited the sea. I'm kind of singing it for you. Now, you might be like, yeah, so what? But doesn't that show how extraordinary a woman she was and how subversive she was, that she would use the rhythm of a very well-known hymn to write a poem about sexual awakening? I think that's absolutely amazing and easy to write about. So that's it from me for this video, but do tune into the next one because I'm going to be taking you through 5 key quotes and analysing them for language, structure and form. Do click subscribe if you haven't already, and then you'll get notifications of when the rest of the poems are done. Thanks again. Happy revising.